Hello everyone, Luke here, and very excited today because today's going to be one of my first book videos, like a little book video I wanted to make. And um, today I'm going to be looking at Don Quixote. So it's a book that I've been reading over the past month recently. And, you know, I finished it, I'm like halfway through, and I just wanted to make a video about my thoughts on it so far. So, in case you don't know what the Quixote or Don Quixote is, it is mostly well known as one of the first modern novels of the English language, and um, it was written by Miguel de Cervantes in about it was published in 1605 in Spain, and so this guy Cervantes. Well, first let me talk about what the book is about. Don Quixote is about this knight, this old man knight, Don Quixote, and um, basically, in his old age, he has gone senile, and he's read too many of these chivalrous novels, which were novels about like knights going on adventures, complications, and stuff. They're very popular back in the day. They're kind of like a pulp noir novel. Um, what a pulp noir novel would be back in the 50s, or what like a John Grisham type novel would be today. So, in the book, it starts out with, this old man reading these novels about knights and going crazy, and he eventually goes so crazy he goes out into the world, thinks he is a knight, and goes on these adventures, just goes on these misadventures. And the book is written as just kind of each chapter just recounting the adventure, recounting the tales of Don Quixote right here. um so that's the main plot of the book so far. But the author, Cervantes, this was probably the first time he ever had success, and it came very late in his age when he published this. Um, he, oh my god, his life is crazy. So he was a soldier, and then after he was a soldier, I think on his way home, he got captured by pirates and was enslaved on seas for a while, for a long time. Hold on. Let me see here. So, 23, Cervantes enlisted in the Spanish militia, fought the Turks in 1571, and then where he got a gunshot wound that crippled his left hand in that battle. So imagine writing with that. And then, yeah, he was captured by some Barbary pirates for 5 years, and then he was ransomed off. But when he got home, he owed a lot of debt. So then he gets captured by pirates, put in prison when he gets home, and in prison, I think is where he began to write the Quixote. At least the first parts. So another big defining feature of the Quixote is that it is a book in two parts. So there's part one of the Quixote, and then part two of the Quixote actually wasn't written until 10 years after the publication of the first. Um, what happened was Cervantes published the first part. It got so popular that other people started writing basically Don Quixote fan fiction, and there's a very famous like French Don Quixote that was like the most famous imitator of this time. But 10 years after the first part came out, Cervantes comes back to write the second part, set the record straight. I haven't read it, I've only read the first part, but I'm making this video just kind of like debrief my thoughts on the first part so far, because I'm very excited to read the second part. I hear the second part is like even better than the first. It's where everything really comes together. But in this first part, um, you kind of you see the start of Don Quixote's journey, and let's see. So, you know, the book starts with Don Quixote setting out on his adventure, but there's like a cast of characters in this book that we meet along the way that stick around, kind of like an RPG party. for Don Quixote, but his main squeeze is his like assistant, his knights errant Sancho Panza. Sancho Panza is this like tiny, uh, grouchy, kind of also insane guy who tags along with Don Quixote throughout all of part one, and most people say he's like the other main character of Don Quixote, or the true main character, because part two of the book is mostly focused on Sancho. We'll see. We'll see what my thoughts are in that, but yeah, just know there's Don and Sancho. They're like the two main characters. And so, yeah, Don Quixote, in this first part, like, I'm gonna show you where it takes place, because it takes place in Spain. So he's called Don Quixote de la Mancha. Here's La Mancha, right here in the middle. And then the book mainly is focused from like in this region down to the Andalusia region. A lot of mentions in the Andalusia region in the book. And then this is just gonna bring me, I feel like I've explained the book enough now. This is just gonna bring me into my history with the book and why I'm reading it. So I first, I probably have heard of the Quixote just through like collective unconscious, just hearing it around, but my first true exposure to it was through a Spanish professor I had in my senior year of high school. He had a whole unit on it, just basically just talking about the book, like telling us what it was. But at the same time, he had like vacation slides from when he went to Spain. So he was showing us all these slides about where the book. I think he even showed us a photo of like the original book, which is in the capital uh, of Madrid. It's in like the Capitol building. The original manuscript is in there, and he got to see it. So that was like a cool exposure, or just introduction to it, because most teachers wouldn't. Most language teachers I had until that time were only kind of formalistically teaching the language. They never really taught us any culture or anything, and that's what I appreciated about it. But this copy I bought about a year after my senior year of high school, definitely before I was a junior in college. I owned this. I just got it at Barnes and Noble off a whim because I wanted just a big book to have. But yeah, so that was my history with the Quixote. But I also have a relationship with Spain. I studied abroad in Granada in the Andalusia region, and you know, yeah, I really like Spain. I really like the culture. I learned so much there. So it's kind of like interesting. I had a professor on that trip that was reading the book Quixote. She didn't get very far throughout the whole trip. I don't know if she stuck with it, but I hope she did now, because if only I was reading the Quixote then on that trip, but that'd be cool. But like I was doing other stuff, which was fine. And reading this, it's kind of nice to just be there again, you know. Um, you know, like one thing I liked is that like you study abroad in Europe, right? It's beautiful, but then you really get out to the countrysides, you drive out in the cities, and it looks no different than where you probably live. So this is like the painting of the penguin cover. I just love this because I have neighborhoods or like certain spots around me where I can get this exact same view. And so it's not that like, you may not be living in Europe, but take out the romanization, it looks the same. She looks the same, and so it's my history. Like hearing about the book and its reputation, I started reading it because I just wanted to read a big book, but I didn't want to read a hard book because I wanted something to read at work because I work in a Mexican restaurant. So I was reading the John Ornsby translation of the Quixote that I got on my Libby app in the library, and then I got up to chapter 8, and chapter 8 or 7 of the Quixote is the very probably most famous scene of the book. It's Don Quixote running at the windmills with Sancho, thinking they're giants. When I studied in Granada, I got a jewelry tray of that scene. I don't have it on me; it's in storage. I have to find it, but for part 2, maybe I'll bring it out. Um, yeah, it's beautiful. I've been looking at that scene so long. So when I got to that chapter super early, I was like, okay, I should probably like lock in, find a translation I like. So I did some like window shopping with translations. So I picked up the John Rutherford. I read this one for a bit, but this is like a little wordy, too classic-y. Um, Not bad. I don't think there's a bad translation of Quixote, but it's just not the one I wanted for my first time. Um, but what was helpful about this edition, just a little side note, is Roberto Gonzalez Echevarria. This guy right here wrote the introduction. He actually has a full free Yale lecture course on YouTube. So I started watching that, just like get an introduction to Quixote. And so that really helped me get into the book and understand what it's trying to do. So I was reading a couple like different ones. I read the John Hornsby, I read the Rutherford. But then I found this, the Edith Grossman translation, which came out in about 2003. So, really, like, this was the one I heard the most about online that most people have read. Hold this book up to this one. Oh my god. Oh my god. I love the books, and I cannot lie. But, yeah, Edith Grossman, Philly native, so already, like, yeah, it says right here she's from Philly. Already, like, a W in my book. I'll always take that. But her introduction was beautiful. I was reading it, and I was just kind of moved to tears the way she talks about, like, translating it and the importance of the work. Like, a very deep reverence comes through the translation. And, you know, some translations are funnier, some translations are more sad. You know, this is a very more melancholic translation, but it's still funny. That's the best thing about all the different translations of Quixote, is that I learned this, it's like, one can be funny, one can be sad, but like, it doesn't matter, because even if, you know, this one is more melancholic, you'll still find it funny. I found it funny. And even if you read one of the, you know, funnier translations, the one that comes to mind is whatever, Salman Rushdie. You can find the one Salman Rushdie likes. Apparently that's like the most liberal translation of it, the most humorous one. But you can pick any one and be fine. And so I picked this one, and this is crazy. I bought it on my phone. I bought it on my phone so I can read at work, and it's like 2,600 little ebook pages on my iPhone, but I got through part 1 in probably like 4 weeks, a month, maybe. It took me a month to get through this much. Part 1, that's part 2. And the best thing about, I'd say, having like this physical edition is that, along with everything else, it also includes a bunch of sonnets about Don Quixote that have been written throughout history. And like, you know, there's a amazing index that just gives you so much to like chew on and read. You know, it's definitely different from reading it on my phone. Because when I read on my phone, it's kind of weird. Stay with me. It feels like I'm reading manga. Because it's so quick, and like the way Cervantes writes and the way it's translated is just so like matter-of-factly, so plainly written. It's not doing too much. It's good writing. It's just good, simple writing, and that's why I like, I mean, it's probably why this book has lasted for so long, is because it's a simple book. Like, people read this to their kids and stuff, and it's kind of like, once you kind of shatter that illusion, and you know, I know, once you kind of prepare yourself not to get everything in the first go, your brain just kind of takes over, and it kind of just fills in everything going on. And it is very funny. Like, it is a funny book. So, yeah, that's how I read Don Quixote. That's my history. I've said all I kind of wanted to say about part 1. It's just like, I've loved part 1, reading it, and you know, it's had like a pretty big effect, because the big final academic point about Don Quixote, I should have said this in the intro, but this is my first video, is that Don Quixote is the first modern novel, because it's the first novel about the reader. So Don Quixote, he is a reader, right? He reads novels and he takes on those ideas and tries to bring them into his life and then act them out. Like what we do, like, you know, a modern day example, I'm a dork. Persona games. People play those Persona games. They're like, oh my god, life is like Persona. I can just schedule manage, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so it's, once I really understood that point, um, about why it stuck. It just became very personal journey. Like there's all a Don Quixote within all of us, just trying to like survive and just kind of like make something of themselves and their life. And at this like I don't have the academic eloquence to fully explain that point. And like you can find it elsewhere. That introduction series and the introduction of the books, they can explain it to you pretty well. But just understanding that, um, you know, gives this such a more personal element than any other like old older literature I've read, like more so than like any Greek play I've read or like any other old book, like The Prince, the Decameron, uh I haven't read the Divine Comedy, but yeah, it just makes Don Quixote is easily like if I had to recommend anyone wanted to start reading like old literature, like really wanted to like get to know a thing or two about books, I got started with Don Quixote. And don't be afraid of a big book. Like you can easily put this one down, pick it up. Like just think about like the chapters like newspapers. Like chapters for books would just come out in newspapers and people would read them every week and be fine. Like yeah, not a very intimidating, very enjoyable book, and I highly recommend it. And you know, like yeah, Don Quixote, the reader, he's the reader making self of the world, and hopefully like making these videos, like I'm making something of myself, something of this reading, just putting the knowledge out there, and then like I thought it'd be a cool, because that grand point, I thought it'd be a cool like first video for the first book for my first video. Um, so that's all I have to say about Don Quixote Part One. Hopefully, sometime soon, I will be here talking about Part Two, or hopefully, I'll be talking about a different book. But until then, bro, fucking keep reading.